Hey, everybody. We are back and we are so excited because today has been all about getting started in genealogy. And today we have a guest speaker and teacher who is going to help us with the younger generation. And that's something that we're all really, really excited about because for most of us that are familiar with genealogy, when you go to the genealogy libraries or the family search centers, you notice that those that are usually engaged in the work are of an older generation. And so we find that it's really important to get the youth excited. And we have the most wonderful presenter to help us do that today. This is Jana Greenhalgh, and she is going to talk about fostering genealogical enthusiasm, engaging the next generation. Hi, Jana.
Hello.
So good to have you here. And I just have
Oh,
to say a
thanks.
personal anecdote too, because I came to Roots Tech for the first time this year and sat next to Jana randomly at our media dinner the night before. And we all had our phones and looked up who we were related to in the room. If you haven't done that yet, it's super fun. Are you related? And found out that we're like either second or third cousins.
It's pretty
And it was
close.
crazy.
Yeah, it was really close. We were the closest cousins. You were my closest
Yeah,
cousin.
sitting right next to each other. And that was so great to see. So I'm so excited, though, to tell people even more about you besides the fact that we're related. Jana is an accredited genealogist specializing in England research. So outside of this topic, she could probably help you with that too. She graduated from BYU in 2003 with a bachelor's degree in genealogy and family history, and now teaches family history there as an adjunct professor. She's also been an instructor for BYU Idaho's online family history degree program, served on the board of directors for the Utah Genealogical Association, and as a level 1 chair for ICAP Gen's testing. So we are in really, really good hands today with this live. As a reminder, tell us where you're watching from. We want to hear and we want your questions. So Jana has a great presentation prepared for us, but there will be room for questions at the end. So make sure you put your questions. And if you are watching the replay, still ask your questions. We will make sure we get to them. We're going to be checking, and this video will be up even after it's live. So Jana, thank you again for being here with us. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thanks, Erin. I appreciate that. It's so nice to be introduced by a cousin, too. And actually, Erin, I think I have some recent research I got to share with you. You just reminded me, since we're cousins, I've been doing some work on that side of the family. Hey, I am so excited about this presentation today. I often present about research or some of the more professional aspects of genealogy, but I'm happy today to just be keeping it light and talking about one of my favorite subjects. So a huge thanks to Family Search and Roots Tech for inviting me here today to talk about family history excitement, fostering genealogical enthusiasm. And we are specifically going to be talking about engaging the next generation, so the young people. But I want to be clear, if there are any young people that watch this, that's awesome, super cool. I hope to have some ideas for you. I'm going to be speaking to probably parents or grandparents or teachers, people who have young people in their lives, people who already are kind of excited about genealogy and are trying to figure out, how do I get the young people excited around me? Or maybe you are not so much of a young person, but you're just looking to foster some enthusiasm in yourself. And the reality is these principles are going to be the same. No matter how old you are, we're going to talk about some great ideas for just engaging and fostering that enthusiasm. So I'm pretty excited about this topic as something I love to present on. So let's get rolling. I want to start with a really important point. It might seem very simple, actually, but this is just a principle that we got to start with. This is foundational. Did you know family history is good for you? You probably did. You're the kind of people that are watching family history webinars, so you already know this stuff is so good for you. It's good for all of us, no matter how old we are. From the oldest to the youngest, family history is just really beneficial. And I can't even give you a comprehensive list of all the benefits. There are so many, but this slide will hopefully sum it up. Okay, family history benefits include the feeling of connection, which is essential. It's just, like you need only a few things to live: food, water, air, connection. That's on my list. We need to feel connected to other people, and it doesn't matter how old you are, you need that. Belonging. This is a big one. We all want to feel like we belong. You've probably heard there are studies that show, we talk about it all the time in our industry, that resilience is a natural result of knowing your family history. You're stronger. You're a stronger person when you understand your own family history. I've felt that, and I want that for my kids, because again, it's good for all of us. One thing that I love about family history, a benefit that I think is really special, is that having a knowledge of your family history gives you opportunity to be more grateful for what you have, where you are, who you are, because we get more perspective the more we know. And again, this is just something that is beautiful for all ages of people. And, not everybody will come to this naturally. Some will say, I'd like to try that family history thing, but not everyone will. And especially the young people who may just be completely ignorant about it, they won't be able to have these great benefits, these blessings, unless they are introduced to this in some way. So I'm just going to start us off today with my two favorite tips. Okay, these are tips for helping you to help the young people to develop this love and then to reap these benefits. Now I've got way more ideas than two, but I feel like these are the best two, or the two that really sum it up. So we're going to go with these to start us off today. First of all, if you want to introduce and inspire some enthusiasm in young people, you need to tell them stories, or at least get the stories to them somehow, right? But not just that. You don't just want to open a book and read a family history tale. You want to do this creatively, all right? So we'll talk way more about that here over the next few minutes. Second, sometimes, like I was alluding to, young people need an invitation to get into this. Right? Just a very small percentage of them will have personalities that, are maybe curious about genealogy and discover it on their own. But for most young people, they need an invitation. They need someone to show them or to invite them to make this discovery. So there you have kind of the overall summary of top tips for me today. But let's go dig a little deeper into this. I want to tell you how I became enthusiastic about family history. And I am enthusiastic about this. Maybe you're getting that vibe already. I just love this stuff, and I have for a long time. But I don't think I was necessarily born with it. I give a whole lot of credit to these two people on the screen. Well, there's me on the right. I'm the little one. I'm pretty sure this is about how old I was when I started to get really excited and enthusiastic about my own family history. My dad was kind of a hobbyist genealogist, and I would watch him. I would see him prepare and go to the library and fill out family group sheets. He had one of those ancient old computers that had an ancient version of the PAF program, so we could look at our family history on our computer, and that was intriguing to me, to think about my connections to those names and those dates and those places. Another amazing thing about my parents is that they would use their creativity, their musical talent, in fact, to present family history to me and to my siblings. So they're folk musicians. You see the guitar and the fiddle there. And this is kind of funny and a little bit cheesy, but these guys, they write their own songs, and they write songs about our family, our pioneer stories or whatever. They still do this, and it's wonderful. And so you don't necessarily need to become a musician and present family history in that way, but what is your creative way, right? You've probably got some creative outlet, whether you're an artist or an actor, a storyteller, or you can in some way appeal to the young generation's senses to tell creative stories. So I love my parents. Shout out to them. They got me started in this. And that's your invitation, is to get your young people started in this. Here's another guy that really got me going. My grandpa, he was the family genealogist. A lot of us have some person like this in our family, and usually we're content to sit back and just say, well, he's taking care of that. He's gathering all our people. We'll just let him have his fun. But my grandpa was clever. He's a smart guy. And he did something really special for me. So you see the picture of me there in the bottom right. I'm a little older now. I was 16 in that photo. And that is my brand new purple Dodge Neon that my parents helped me to buy. And I was so excited to turn 16 and to feel that independence and to, to have a car. My grandpa, the smart guy, he called me up and he said, Jana, would you please come give me a ride to the family history library? And I loved my grandpa. So this was just all the trick that he needed. I was happy to pick him up and give him a ride in my cute little new car. He needed a ride. He couldn't drive himself. You can probably tell in the picture, he's in a wheelchair at the end of his life. He had the use of half of his body. He'd had some strokes and heart attacks that had left him half paralyzed. So he could function with his one hand, in his wheelchair, but he did really need help getting around. And so I would go to the family history library with him. I took my boyfriend. We had a great time learning from my grandfather how to do genealogy. He would use us, as his research assistants, and for us, it was really meaningful. And we were able to discover the joy of genealogy just through his simple invitation to be there and to do it with him. I realize that might not help everyone. Not every teenager is willing to drive their old grandpa around, but you never know when the invitation will be just the thing. It worked well for me. We ended up, Grandpa and I, doing quite a few projects together, compiling a family history book and lots of fun things. So there's my backstory. That's how I got excited. But let's fast forward now, quite a few years. My parents, my grandpa, they were instrumental in helping me, the next generation, to develop an enthusiasm for family history. But now I'm a mom, and I want to share that same kind of enthusiasm with my kids. They're the next generation, and in fact, there are a lot of them, as you can see in this photo. I've had lots of opportunity to think about this, especially as a genealogist, always on my mind. They have friends. We have a large community, including a lot of youth, and also I'm a teacher at BYU. So I'm constantly rubbing shoulders with young people and older teenagers, young adults, and watching and trying to help them to develop this kind of enthusiasm. I've been taking notes for quite a few years about what works, what doesn't work so well, and I'm excited to share some of these ideas with you. So I'm going to give you several. There are way more than I can share in our time together today, but I'm going to give you as many as I can. And these are just simple activities that young people can try in order to help them to develop a love for genealogy. And some of them, they could do this on their own, but maybe it's you that puts the idea in their head and helps them to develop that love just by giving them the idea. This is the first idea I have for you, and this is something that I do often with my classes at BYU. In fact, we just did this last week. We do this in the first week of a semester. Just to get us started. So I call it the "What do you know about your pedigree" game. And really, it's not a game. It's very simple. All you do is grab a paper and a pencil, and you set a 3-minute timer, and you start with yourself, and you try to figure out if you can name your own parents and grandparents, and maybe can you get to your great-grandparents in 3 minutes. Now, interestingly, most people know who their grandparents are, by name at least. Not a lot of people can name their great grandparents. And so 3 minutes ends up being more than enough. This is actually really great to do in a group because then it kind of feels like a game or a little bit of a competition. I give them a point for every name that they can write down on the paper, especially if they can remember a middle name or somebody's maiden name. So this is just a good exercise to help a person know without the use of their computer or their phone or anyone helping them, what do they already know about their family straight from their brain. And it can be kind of an eye-opening exercise, actually. It can be kind of a wake-up call for some people. They're like, wait, who was that? I know who that was, but they can't remember the name. And that will then inspire them to want to figure out who that is. So they'll go to their pedigree chart right after, or they'll call their mom and they'll figure out who that person was that they couldn't remember. So this is a really great starting place to help people get rolling with their family history. It's often a really good idea if you have time to ask some questions when you do this activity. Not just, okay, well, who did you know and who didn't you know, but who do you think you know best? And think about, why do you know that person so well? Why do you connect with them? You know, maybe you've spent more time with that branch of your tree, and maybe that helps them to feel like they want to know more about that side, or maybe the other side that they didn't know something about. We can think about, which of these people on your 3-minute pedigree do you feel like you have something in common with? Or did you inherit something from them? That can kind of open the door for connections to be made. Maybe you can invite people to then take this pedigree chart and maybe come back next week and see if they've found something new and report it to you. I can do that as a teacher because I can assign homework, but maybe as a parent or a grandparent, you want to, make that invitation to a child. So this is a starting place. In family history, we always start with ourselves and then we let it grow from there. We start with ourselves and those who are closest related to us, we inherit the most from them. And that can be a great opening gate for family history enthusiasm. Another activity, and it's very simple, it's really just a question, is to ask youth to try and think about connections that they already know about between themselves and their ancestor, commonalities, similarities that they share with one ancestor in particular. So, for example, you see my son here likes basketball. It's pretty awesome to him and my other boys that their great-grandfather was a starting center on our favorite college basketball team, okay? So there's an immediate connection and something that it maybe doesn't sound like a research project. It's much more simple than that. But those are the kinds of things that will help them be more interested just in their own family history, is to find those commonalities. Sometimes at first glance, it's not very easy to find commonalities between someone who lived ages ago and lived a very different life than we live today. But the commonalities are there. They could be in the form of a hobby like this example, or maybe it's like a physical trait, that you've inherited your curly hair from someone, or your, skin tone or your eye color, or it could be, just a tendency that you have, or a liking for a certain food group, whatever it is. Those things can help inspire that enthusiasm in young people. Here's just another example of that. As a parent of young children, I take opportunity to recognize those similarities in my own kids and then point out to them the similarity, because they don't know. My little boy here, James, he loves trains, loves playing trains, but does he have any idea that he had an ancestor who worked on the railroad? No, not until I tell him that. But once I do, it's as simple as even just mentioning to him, did you know you have an ancestor named John who worked on the railroad? And then show a picture or two, or briefly tell the story in whatever way your child will hear it. And then they know, and then they have that connection with the person, and it will be more interesting to them. Family history will, moving forward. Okay, here's an idea, and this might work even better for the older children or young adults, or really any of us can engage in this awesome activity. But I find it's a really great thing to invite young people to interview their older relatives. Now, some people won't be interested in that idea. It's up to the child to decide that they want to do this. But this is something I actually require my young BYU students to do every semester. I say you've got to find an older relative and just ask them questions. Ask them about their life and record that. Record the memories, record the stories, because if you don't, it's possible that no one will. And those stories will be gone as soon as that person is gone if they haven't been preserved in some way. So, this is just a really meaningful activity that young people can engage in. I always feel like every semester when my students come back and tell me that they've done this, that it had a bigger impact on them, the student, the interviewer, than they expected. It was more meaningful to them than they thought. Sometimes our older relatives are reluctant about this, but hopefully not. My grandma here, for example, I interviewed here. You're seeing her in her bed where she passed away just months after this photo was taken. But I would go, I had, a weekly assignment to be there to care for her for just, an hour at a time while she was passing. And so while we sat there together, I just asked her stories and I recorded them. You bet I did. So now I can go back and listen to grandma's voice whenever I want. And I can share her voice, with future generations who will, I'm sure, love hearing that. Anyway, and it's a simple idea. She didn't think she had any stories, by the way. Don't let anyone ever shut you down with that excuse. She didn't think that she would have much to say, but we proved her wrong. She had some incredible stories, and I'm so grateful I was able to capture those. This is a great thing. Even young kids can engage in this. Maybe the interview needs to be a little smaller, but a young child can ask grandpa, what was it like when you were a kid? What kinds of toys did you play with? What TV shows did you watch? Oh, you didn't have a TV? There was a time when there was no TV? We can learn all kinds of things and develop that gratitude and perspective that we were talking about earlier if we'll listen to the stories of our older relatives. I love this one. Another activity I like to invite young people to engage in is preservation. And this could be the preservation of loose photos or old documents, journal pages, scrapbooks, heirlooms in any form. Maybe take pictures of old homes before they fall apart. There's all kinds of history that's still standing, still exists, but who knows when the next house flood or someone passes away and the things get lost. Memories die every day. And so as soon as they're old enough to comprehend it, I like to help my children to understand how important it is to have these kinds of projects. So again, this is one that I assign my students at BYU every semester. They have to preserve at least some photos or journal pages, something that they want to make sure will then be passed down to future generations. Getting things in a digital format is something that the next generation understands how to do. They know how to use phones, and they could use a scanner. They can use computers to turn things into a digital, savable, shareable format. Lots of creative ways to do this, but the easiest way is just to have your kids take a cell phone and, take pictures of things. That's better than nothing. Even better would be to have a good scanner or whatever equipment, but even taking photos of historically important things can be really helpful. And again, this activity opens eyes. It helps people because they're visual. Usually an heirloom or an old photo is tangible, or old handwriting, they can see that and they can feel it. And so it might spark the curiosity to help them get more excited or more interested. And certainly it will help them to own their family history by taking apart and preserving it in that way. So in whatever way you can, preserve photos, preserve all of the things, and let the young people help you with that. All right, this is my favorite one probably. And in fact, I have just received word that Roots Tech is going to let me talk about this one next year at Roots Tech in person in Salt Lake. We need to tell stories, and we need to tell them creatively. And I feel really passionately that we don't think outside the box enough. We need to think about even more creative ways to tell our family history. And if we do, we will reach more people who don't think that family history is for them, people who are uninterested. If we can just find the right creative way to just turn family history into storytelling, we might snag some more family history enthusiasts. So, for example, on this page, we have a medium at our house, a creative medium called Lego. You've probably heard of it. It's like the most famous toy company. And listen, I own so many Legos that I feel like they owe me a commission. If anyone from Lego hears this presentation, just know I have so many that you might want to send me a free gift. We've got Legos at our house. I've had lots of kids that really like to build. And so if we want to turn that beautiful creative outlet into family history, all we have to do is say, hey, let's build the story of our ancestors' immigration on that cool sailing ship. And then pretty soon my kids have run to their room and they're building a sailing ship, and the little Lego guys represent our ancestors, and we can tell the story. Sometimes they like to use stop animation apps on my phone so that they can even use the Legos, and you just move them, take a picture, move them, take a picture, and pretty soon you've got an animation where the Lego people are your ancestors, and you can watch the video of the story. So many creative ways for us to tell stories. My boy that loves Minecraft, well, a lot of them do, he'll build an ancestral home or recreate our hometown or our ancestral village in Minecraft. That's fun for him. That appeals to him. So he can tell the story by, setting it up that way. Maybe young people in your lives enjoy acting or storytelling in costume, like Captain James here on the slide. We've tried quite a bit of that, making little home videos, that kind of thing. That'll not only turn a kid on to family history because it's fun, it will solidify the story from the family history in their minds. They will remember that ancestor if they've dressed up like him and acted out his story. More about this next year at Roots Tech. I'm going to bring a lot of ideas that my students use, a lot of ideas from my kids and just raising them, and we'll share even more creative ways to do this. There's another one, top left. I've got a 5-year-old, a kindergartner right now, so she and I were playing Play-Doh the other day, decided to tell the story of great-grandpa Willie, who was an apple orchard owner, farmer. So she knows about Grandpa Willie now. She's not going to forget him. She used the cowboy hat stamper cookie cutter we have and put that right on him. I think I did the mustache and the eyes because that was tricky. But, when you're playing with your kids, when you're interacting with them, just think, how can I twist this into family history? And use your your creativity and see what you can come up with. I threw a couple of other art pieces on this slide. My students will often create artistic storytelling pieces. So the bottom left there, one of my students recently painted this painting of her ancestor. He's got some ice skates slung over his back because she was telling the story of how he traveled quite some distance on the Great Lakes that he lived by on his ice skates. The one on the right is a graphic art piece that one of my young students created to kind of retell her own experience researching what was a seemingly broken piece of her family tree, a dead end. But she was able to patch it up through some research and interaction with family members, and then basically told me the story about this by creating a little bit of artwork. So think outside the box, think creatively, and think, how can we visually tell and share family history with the children? And then how can they, in turn, retell the stories in their own way in whatever, creative outlet they prefer. Okay, next idea is that we could encourage young people, the next generation, to visit genealogically important places. This is easy. You just plan your family vacation around some cool landmark, okay? Maybe it's a cemetery, maybe there's an ancestral home you want to visit. I do this as a genealogist. I'm always turning into cemeteries. Sometimes my kids complain, but usually they don't, because we keep it fun. I usually pack a picnic in, as long as they've got something good to eat, their memories of a place will usually be good. There are some fun things you can do with visiting cemeteries, like make a scavenger hunt out of it. Make it kind of a puzzle or a game for them to find the information on a stone, or to find the stone in the cemetery. We've had a lot of fun with our kids doing those kinds of activities. And if you can't go anywhere, if you're stuck at home, you can still go places. Google Earth gives us so much opportunity to visit ancestral towns, see if their house is still standing. And young kids love to do this. They love to go walking around. And once they know that they are from a certain place, it's exciting for them to go explore that place and learn more about it. One idea could be to encourage young people to engage in a family history service project. Okay, this could be something like indexing, maybe some cemetery service like cleanup, or taking pictures of photos or tombstones in cemeteries and uploading those to a website. There's different ways to serve in family history. The Get Involved app has been a really great tool because it's so easy. I do have a note about this, though. We never want to, make children be helpful if it's going to actually hinder them from enjoying family history work, right? Indexing is just frankly tedious for a lot of people. And so young people who are just, encountering this for the first time might be absolutely turned off by it. But I have also seen it work really well for certain teenagers to look at an old document, to be introduced to some old handwriting, to figure out what it says. That act can wake them up and help them to be interested in research. I always teach family history service, like indexing, in the form of a party. I always do. We always have food with it because it makes it more fun. It's less like a data entry service project and more like, hey, let's gather people together and do this together and see what we can do together to get more names indexed and also have some good food on the side. So just an idea. It might work for your young people. A really simple way to foster enthusiasm is to just make sure you're carrying on family traditions, especially those multi-generational family traditions. So in our family, there's a family tradition of fishing in the summertime. It goes back many generations. My boys know that every summer we're going to fish, and they're going to know that their grandpas, their great grandpas, especially on dad's side of the family, they were fishermen. And in fact, we go and we fish in the same places where they fished. And so, it's just, for us, that's something that keeps the generations connected, is that we're still fishing every summer. On the right of this slide, you can see my grandmother's homemade banana ice cream, which we always ate on the 4th of July picnic, family picnic that we had every year at her house. And now that she's gone, I just insist on making homemade banana ice cream every 4th of July so that my kids can know and think about and remember her and taste the memory. Food traditions are the best. Food traditions can go a long way at inspiring the next generation to connect with their own history. So think about what those traditions might be in your family and don't let them die. Keep them going and talk about where they came from. Don't just eat the banana ice cream. Talk about who it was that gave that. Maybe pull a picture of grandma out so the kids know. Okay, let's talk about research. And I'm talking about the next generation, okay? Young people are smart. This is my observation. They're very capable. They don't actually need to be taught which buttons to push. In most cases, technology is so intuitive for them that all it really takes is an invitation for them to go and find some information. So if the young person in your mind you're trying to get excited about family history is at all interested in this, have some faith in them and, build them up, cheerlead for them whenever you can if they want to try some research. All they need is just a little bit of a success for this to become very meaningful and fun for them. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Recently, one of my students was asking for help trying to find an ancestor. She was working in an old record, brand new to genealogy. And I'd given her a homework assignment. So this could have gone wrong, but she had some courage. And I had sent her to the right website where I knew she could find the images of the old records, but there was no index. And so it was going to be a little bit like finding a needle in a haystack. And I knew it. Some old handwriting she had to work through. These are hard things. But as she started to recognize a few names on the page, you could see the fire spark inside of her. It just lit up. And all of a sudden she says, I see why you like this now. This is fun. She hadn't even found what she was looking for yet, but she caught the bug. And she realized that family history research is like being a detective. We're hunting for clues. We're solving a puzzle. It's like a game. But of course, it's more than a game because when you're finding people, you're finding real people who you're connected to. These are your relatives. These are your people. And that feels good to a young person. Feels good to any of us, right? It's like a treasure hunt, really meaningful one that helps you feel that connection that we all just really need. So that was exciting to watch for her. I had another student, same semester, who was kind of upset at me. She was very frustrated because I'd given her assignment to find a marriage record that I thought probably existed for her ancestors. They were from a place where the records weren't easy to use. It was a little bit hard. And also in a foreign language, but she had a little bit of experience with that language, and so she was determined to find something. That's bravery. I always give kids a huge high five when they, demonstrate that kind of bravery. But she dug in, and it took her a while, but I was able to see her find that marriage record, and the smile on her face and the rewarding feeling that she had was priceless. And then she wasn't mad at me anymore. And now she's hooked, So this sometimes all it takes is just that one little bit of success in research, and you got a lifelong genealogist on your hands. I need to sum up. I want to give you just some basic advice. I've kind of already talked about this, but in many cases with young children, you have to keep it very simple. Especially with the youngest of children, but even with the teenagers or the young adults or any beginner in genealogy, we've got to keep it simple and be okay with that. And of course, we never want to force family history on anyone. Don't put your expectations on a child or someone else. Family history looks different for all of us. And so they need to be able to discover the joy of family history in their way of doing family history. So no expectations, just invitations. And then, of course, you want to look for the fun. Look for those creative ways to engage in family history, retell stories, and that will give you the best chance of inspiring the next generation. just to wrap it up, let me just give you an example of how different we all are. And this just emphasizes the fact that everybody's got their own personalities, interests, talents, and we need to use those, play off of those in order to connect to our ancestors in an enjoyable way. All right, so we've got 7 kids on this slide. These are my kiddos. All of them are very different. You can see I've got dark hairs, I've got light hairs, I've got curly heads, straight heads. And what's even more is they all like different things, right? So those first 2 on the left, they're attending different colleges, studying different things. The high school boys, one's in mountain biking team, the other's in the marching band. I've got a tackle football player and a flag football player, and that little girl on the right, she just likes to dance. She could care less about a ball. Everybody's different. Now, when it comes to family history and inspiring them, you need to think about those differences. So my oldest boy, he likes geography. He's always loved maps. And so the localities, the places in our family history has always appealed to him the most. And so he likes to learn about those and look into those. My daughter, she's a really good cook in the kitchen. So naturally, as she was growing up, I was introducing family recipes to her that she could cook. That boy in the middle that I've got an arrow pointing down to indexing, don't get me wrong, he does not like indexing. I don't know very many young people that do, but he is very social. And so he has been able to find joy in gathering friends around and doing index in a party style format, especially with good food. In fact, last time he and his buddies were indexing, they were doing some African census records that were quite modern, and they were just learning about a different culture, a different place, how people lived in very small homes and had to use different kinds of things for fuel sources or things that just open their eyes and help them to be grateful for what they have. My Owen there in the middle, he's my one that will really engage in the research with me. He likes the puzzle. He likes to add a new name to our family group sheets, or a pedigree chart. So he'll engage in that. James is an artist. He likes to create. He likes to draw and paint. And so all it takes is for me to say, hey, here's a brief family history story. Can you illustrate that? Can you paint it for me? And he will. Henry's my video game kid that likes to build the Minecraft retelling of our family history, or the Lego builds. And then there's little Lydia. This is kind of an old photo now. This is from a few years ago. She's in kindergarten now, and she is actually my constant reminder that we need to keep preserving things. She likes to look at the old photos and scrapbooks, and she has learned, because I take her with me to the family search center down the street from our home. We're lucky. We live very close to one of those beautiful family search centers that has scanning equipment in it. So we'll take a scrapbook and we'll scan it. It's really fun for her because they've got discovery activities there, and they've got a child play area, lots of toys. So I can digitize a scrapbook in an hour, or a stack of photos, while she plays, and we're doing it together, and she'll look at the pictures with me. So you never know until you start to think about each individual young person, what it is that will wake them up to family history and help them to feel a part of things. We haven't had time to go over any more today, but there are so many other ideas. I just want to point you to my family website and our social media channels, because that's the place where we like to share ideas that we have or that we see other people doing. Also, Roots Tech has been so good over the past several years about letting us talk about this. And so it's very exciting that they've been storing a lot of those videos, and you're welcome to go check out any of these sessions that I've taught for them past years, including a couple that were recorded live in Salt Lake. And I mentioned that next year I'm planning to be there again, and we'll be talking more about this creative storytelling concept for the young people. So if you can get to Salt Lake, I will see you there next February, March. Love Roots Tech. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to take questions now, but I thought it might also be fun if some of you who've been watching and have ideas of your own about how to get these young people engaged in genealogy, if you want to pop some of your ideas into the chat, that would be lovely. And then we can just keep learning from each other and have even more ideas. If not, I'll take questions. So I'm going to jump into the chat. Oh, Erin's back. Very good. Oh, Erin, you're on mute.
I always do that. I'm so sorry. That was amazing. I have so many ideas now. I have 4 little kids and my mind was just going crazy during your whole presentation. So I'm really excited. We had some really great questions and I'm glad that you asked people to also comment about their ideas in the chat so we can discuss those if we have some time. The first one, probably it's from Got You on YouTube. Is there a list of questions somewhere that are good for my kids to ask their grandparents?
Oh, that's a great question. That is awesome. And right now, off the top of my head, I think I might actually have one on my website at the Genealogy Kids, but I'm gonna have to double check. What I do before I go into an interview is I usually will Google that very question. I'll just say interview questions or grandparent interview questions, whatever keywords you want to use. And there are some really great lists out there. Ancestry.com. I remember seeing some there. There's some different websites that have published lists of good questions to ask. But when it comes to the kids asking questions of their grandparents, I would just recommend that you should keep it simple, right? And think of questions they could ask that would be interesting for them to hear the answer to. Like I mentioned, what kind of toys did you play with? What was it like to go to school when you were a kid? What was your favorite subject in school? The things that might appeal to them. Those would be my recommendations for you. But I'll check my website and see if I haven't published one. I'll get one up soon.
I love that. I know. And for our moderators on the back end, if you can check Jana's website really quick and maybe find a link, if it's there, then we can put it on the stream so everyone can grab it.
If not,
yeah,
that'll give me something fun to do next week.
And actually, that reminds, Elaine asked, can you remind us what your webpage site is?
Yes, it's thegenealogykids.com with a "the" in front.
Beautiful. Everyone go there. There's so much great knowledge. Okay, we have a great one. I think this is really a good idea too. Bio Oils asks, it would be cool if there's a tool that would use AI to take photos of your kids and compare them to people in your family tree so they can see the resemblance. Is there something out there like that?
Oh, there's totally something like that. Family Search has the Compare a Face tool. You go to Family Search, click on Activities, I think, and you should be able to find that. And I don't know off the top of my head their rules about pictures of kids, but I think you should be able to. The kids don't have their own account. I think that's the only problem, but you could probably take a picture of your kid and it would compare it to your tree. So yeah.
I was going to say, maybe you could temporarily put your kid's picture as yours and then do the thing. I loved that activity. It brought up my grandma on my dad's side, which I had never thought of before, but we actually do kind of look alike. So it's a fun one.
I would love to see this idea grow. I'm not a programmer, I'm not an AI expert, but it would be so great if, because in Family Search, it depends how many photos are in your tree. That activity only works if you've got lots of photos there, but using some AI and, having the tree be broader than just what's in Family Search. Lots of possibilities there for the computer programmers of the world. That's fun.
Well, and Jana, you might know this better than me. I know last year there was a huge viral trend. It may have been My Heritage, where you could put your photo and it would take you to different eras of time. Yes. I bet kids would love that.
Kids would love that tool. I dressed up like my Viking ancestors and I looked fantastic.
Yes. And it was flawless, the airbrush filter. Yeah, right. I loved that one too.
Yeah, those kinds of activities are great for young people. Great ideas.
I think so too. I think that's really fun. And anything that's viral and is shareable, I think kids probably go crazy over too. Mm-hmm. This is a really, really good one. And I think it touches on a lot of things that people are going through right now. Janice asks, I've heard recently that genealogy and understanding your roots really helps young people heal from trauma or other mental health struggles. Do you know much about that and have any advice on how to encourage that? I feel like BYU recently put out an article about this as
Yes,
well.
they
I
did.
wonder if we
I
could
saw that.
find the link. Yeah.
Yeah,
But what are
yes.
your thoughts?
This is such a beautiful concept, and it's not only something that we see popping up in studies, here and there. It's also just something I witness in my students and in people that I interact with, even in myself. When we have a hard thing, some kind of anxiety that we can kind of understand better when we understand our past, it's going to help us. We will be more resilient. A lot of my students very bravely choose to research branches of their tree that have been kind of closed, or have some hard thing in them that they've avoided in the past. But by breaking through and just being brave enough to look at the history, they're able to heal. There are very healing powers in genealogy. I know it as an observer. I'm not a psychologist, but I know it as an observer, and I keep hearing about it. So it's
It's so interesting. So one of our sponsors coming up for next year, DNA Angels, they help connect people that don't know who their biological parents are through DNA. And they've literally helped thousands of people do this. And not every story has a happy ending, but it's
right.
interesting the stories and that people share about going through that experience and how it really helped heal them, even if it didn't connect them in a meaningful way to those biological parents, just to understand more about why they have the curly hair or
Mhm.
why they might have a certain trait. It's just really cool to have that knowledge in many cases. So I
Yeah,
think it's so powerful.
absolutely. That's
That's
yeah,
really cool.
absolutely.
Um, Gordon came in late, or maybe it's Martha. I don't know. Is there a handout? Yes. Jana actually supplied us with those, and we are going to post it on the session page for this video on rootstech.org. So we will send you a link in the chat here as soon as we can. I think we already have it, of where you can grab that handout. And I don't think it's uploaded yet, so we'll put in the link. Check in again tomorrow. It'll be
Okay.
there.
Sounds good. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I want to go back and see if there's any fun. Oh, here's some fun ones that people are telling us their ideas. I love that my adopted kiddo gets a closest match to his paternal grandfather that he's not blood related to. Oh,
Oh,
that's
through the
fun,
photo software. Well, yeah, that's beautiful. Probably not a
That is
coincidence.
cool.
The stars are aligning there.
Isn't that fun? I know. Oh, and actually Tammy said right before that, all of her kids do have accounts on Family Search, and it uses the camera to use a current picture to compare. Okay,
Yeah, and I
that's good
think they need to
information
be
too.
8. If last time I checked, Family Search wanted 8-year-olds or older. But you could probably use your own account to let the camera have a picture of the littles if you wanted to play that game.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tracy asks, do you have a list of ideas by age group?
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. On our family website, which is really just, it used to be a blog, it's kind of a journal. I keep track of ideas there, and we actually have them organized by age group. One of the categories for searching them is by different age groups. So check out the genealogykids.com, and in our activities section, you'll see the different groups.
I love that. So Albert has a thing, an idea that he uses. Print a descendancy chart of your parents and let the kids find themselves and name their cousins.
That's a
That's
great
kind of
idea.
fun. I
Fun one.
like that. There's another fun one from Sherry Whitman. We did family games at Christmas related to our family history. Each family had to work together to answer the trivia questions and play match the ancestor with their pictures type games. So many of my nieces and nephews thanked me for helping them learn more about our family. They loved it.
Isn't that great? And they didn't even know they were gonna love it. They didn't know you were gonna do that. You just had to have the idea, maybe put in a little preparation, but, oh, if we can turn family history into a game, we get a lot more people, the young
I love
kids.
that so much. That is so cool. Here's a fun one from William. For Pioneer Day, we invite the kids to color a square depicting an ancestor. Then we stitch them all together to form a paper quilt. Lots of fun and a great souvenir of the
That's a
event.
fun one. That's a great idea.
That is a
I'd like
great
to see
idea.
a picture of that.
I know. I love, yes, William, do you have a picture of that? Share in the comments if you do. That's awesome. One thing that I was going to mention that I did recently, and I didn't even think about this, but it totally relates. I have my kids love to cook with me.
Mhm.
And growing up, my great aunt Lois, who I loved so much, used to make, she had this great garden up in Salt Lake, and she would make creamed peas and potatoes for dinner. And we would go and pick all the vegetables. So we don't have a garden, but we did have the ingredients. And I taught my daughter how to make it
Oh,
and talked to her
awesome.
about those memories and about Aunt Lois while we made it. It was really fun.
Yeah,
So
that's a really
hopefully,
simple thing to do. A simple way to
yeah,
engage is just to do what you're doing anyway, making dinner. But just don't forget to talk about where did this dinner come from, you know?
yeah, I love that. There's so many things that can help remind us of our ancestry, really. I want to make sure we didn't forget any questions. We had so many good ones, and I'm sure we'll have good ones moving forward too that we'll want answered later. So please leave them if you're watching the replay. Please leave your questions. You saw this in the beginning video, but just remember, Roots Tech registration is coming up and it opens on Monday. I just had to plug that because it's all we've been working on. And sneak peek, on Saturday, we have Family Discovery Day, and we will have a ton of activities. It's a totally free event and part of Roots Tech, and if we'll have tons of activities for kids of all ages, and they're all family history related. So make sure you come and check that out. And again, you can bring your kids for free for that. It's on Saturday, March 2nd. So you'll see more about that in the coming months. But Jana, it's such a pleasure to have you here and just connect. And now I can't wait to hear about what you've learned from our shared family tree.
Yes,
So we'll have
yeah,
to
I'll
connect
email
about
you.
that.
On a
I'm so
research
excited
project.
to know. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you again for everyone who joined us tonight and have a wonderful evening.
All right.
Bye, guys.